The banquet hall shimmered with crystal chandeliers, the kind that spilled light like melted diamonds. Waiters moved in precise lines, their trays floating above the crowd of wealthy investors, CEOs, and board members. Everyone was on edge, because she had arrived, Victoria Hale, billionaire. Tech mogul. Known across the country for two things, unmatched brilliance, and a temper that could burn through steel, she sat at her reserved table with her usual icy posture, her gaze sharp enough to silence anyone who dared walk too close. She had already snapped at two servers for bringing her water with ice rather than without. No one wanted to approach her again, except fate had placed Daniel Carter at the very same table. A single dad, a part-time consultant invited at the last minute when another guest couldn't make it. He wore a clean but slightly worn suit, his hair neatly combed, and a tired kindness lived in his eyes, the look of someone who had spent the entire day juggling work, bills, and school pickups that he wasn't supposed to be sitting with giants like Victoria Hale. But the event organizer had made a mistake, and now he was there, invisible among titans. As dinner was served, a quiet tension wrapped around the table. Every staff member tried to avoid walking near Victoria. Everyone except one, a new waitress who clearly didn't know the danger zone she was stepping into. She carried a tray of hors d'oeuvres, smiling nervously as she reached Victoria's chair. "Ma'am, would you like?" Victoria didn't even let her finish. "No," she snapped sharply, her voice slicing through the air. "If I wanted that, I would have asked for it. Pay attention. Don't hover." The young waitress froze. Color drained from her face, the entire table stiffened. Daniel watched quietly from across the table, a sinking heaviness forming in his chest. He had worked food service before. He knew how moments like this felt, humiliating, unfair, painful. The waitress whispered an apology and stepped back, eyes glossy with embarrassment. Victoria didn't notice. Or maybe she did, and didn't care. Dinner resumed in a suffocating silence. A few minutes later, another waiter with trembling hands approached with a wine bottle. His attempt to pour was shaky, and a drop nearly touched the tablecloth. Victoria's glare shot upward like lightning. "Is it impossible to find competent staff?" she hissed. The waiter stumbled over his words, nearly dropping the bottle. People around the table looked away, pretending not to hear, not to breathe. Daniel exhaled slowly. His daughter, Lily, always said he had a strange ability. He could speak to people who built walls around themselves. He didn't know if it was a gift or just the instinct of someone who'd spent years calming tantrums, soothing heartbreaks, and teaching an 8-year-old girl that kindness still existed. Victoria Hale wasn't his responsibility, but watching the staff shrink back, fear tightening every spine in the room, that he couldn't ignore. He cleared his throat. The table turned to him, surprised he dared to speak. Victoria looked up slowly, her expression cold as winter stone. Daniel met her eyes, calm and unwavering, and then he said the one sentence that changed everything: "You speak to people like no one has ever spoken kindly to you." The whole table froze, the click of glasses stopped. The music in the distance felt too quiet. Victoria blinked, a tiny, rare crack in her armor. For a moment, she didn't speak. She simply stared at him, as if he had peeled back a layer she didn't know was visible. "What did you just say?" she asked softly, but the edge was gone. Daniel didn't flinch. "You're not angry at them," he said gently. "You're angry at someone who isn't here. But these people don't deserve to carry that weight." A muscle tightened in Victoria's jaw, not with fury, but with something like shock. No one talked to her like that. No one cared enough to look beyond the fire to see what burned underneath. She forced out a cold laugh. "You assume you know me?" Daniel shook his head. "No. But I know pain when I see it." Her breath caught, just barely, around the table. Executives pretended to sip their wine, pretending not to watch the moment unfolding. The staff lingered from afar, waiting for the storm that surely had to come, but there was no storm. Instead, Victoria looked away, swallowing hard. For the first time that night, she fell silent. Minutes passed, then something unexpected happened. When the young waitress from earlier walked by again, Victoria called out, in a gentler voice than anyone had ever heard from her, "Excuse me." The waitress froze, bracing for another blow. Victoria cleared her throat. "I apologize for earlier. Long day." The waitress blinked in disbelief. Oh, thank you. It's okay. The table shifted, stunned. Daniel hid a small smile behind his glass. Throughout the evening, Victoria kept glancing at him, confused, unsettled, as if trying to understand how one stranger had seen through her frost. When dessert arrived, she finally asked, "You're not like the others here." "Who are you?" "Just a dad," Daniel said, smiling. "Trying to raise a good kid in a tough world." Her eyes softened. "No one has spoken to me the way you did." "That's okay," he replied. "No one heals alone." She stared at him, quietly absorbing the words. The gala continued, but the atmosphere around their table changed completely. Staff approached without fear, and Victoria didn't snap again. She even thanked one of them. Daniel had no idea the whispers were already circulating around the room, about the man who had tamed Victoria Hale with one sentence. As the event ended, Victoria took a step closer to him. "Daniel," she said carefully, "would you consider consulting for my company? I think I could use someone who sees the world like you do." He smiled warmly. "I'd consider it." But before he walked away, she added softly, almost vulnerably, "And, thank you." He nodded. "Everyone deserves a little kindness, even billionaires." She let out a small, unexpected laugh. For the first time in years, someone had spoken to her not as a billionaire, not as a force of power, but as a person who needed to be seen, and maybe, just maybe, that was the beginning of something neither of them expected.